So, hey guys, thanks for joining us. Just wanted to kind of give you a little background inspiration of my talk before I begin. So last year they had a really good presentation, hunting for big game hunting for APT at Black Hat and DEF CON. And one of their particular slides, they kind of, you'll see it in my presentation, they had a bunch of listings on what do you look for with APT. And I was like, oh, wait, that whole listing you can do with Yara, literally, minus like 3 things. And so my original title for this presentation was Hunt Like a Dentist in Zimbabwe. So, yeah. Hey, you think too soon, some people think too late, I don't know. Yeah, so big game hunting, hunt like a dentist, get it? And I had a picture of Cecil Lion, but we didn't want to offend anybody, so good thing we're not on camera right now. So I didn't want to get like death threats from PETA or anything. So me and Ming kind of discussed it, and we changed it. And luckily I had this alternate title because I gave this talk at a SANS threat hunting incident response conference about 3 months ago. So it was easy, quick and easy. So I'll let that get back to Ming. So.
It's okay. In fact, it's actually good timing because, we were thinking, actually now it is 10:10, so, it's now my pleasure to introduce J. DiMartino from Fidelis. You're from Fidelis, right? Yep. Yeah, from Fidelis. I actually don't remember any of this stuff, so you probably have seen so far that with the exception of like sponsors and the schedule, like everything else, I have to just, I have to just think of it on the fly. But so just one thing I can tell you about Jay is he likes to be mysterious. So without much ado, to talk about how to catch a predator, how to catch a Yeti, how to catch an APT, J. DiMartino.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Oh, man, to catch a predator. Thank you, guys. My name is J. DiMartino. I'm a senior cyber threat researcher at Fidelis Cybersecurity. Today, I'm going to talk to you to catch an APT. We're using Yara. That's the title of my talk. Yeah. Oh, closer? Okay. Is that better? Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry. To catch an APT, Yara, sorry. So I'm going to give you a little rundown what to expect. We're going to kind of define the threat intel problem as we see it. We're going to go over a brief summary of some reverse engineering tools. I'll talk to you a little bit about Yara, how to use it. And then we're going to dive into some malware. We're actually going to look at some PlugX malware that was running rampant back in 2015 that I had the opportunity to look at for my company. We're going to write some rules today, some Yara rules. For those of you who have never written a Yara rule, we will write a rule for the very first time. I will help you. And so we'll write some string rules, and we'll go through tuning string rules. We'll also write a byte sequence rule. So we're going to go from easy to medium to hard in the span of about 50 minutes during this talk. And I have these little indicators there, easy, medium, and hard. So if it's beyond your scope and you see the hard, and if you want to go to sleep, you're more than welcome. But wake up towards the end. I have some results of, after maybe about a year or so of tracking this PlugX malware, just some things that kind of bubbled up, some themes that I'd like to share with you guys. So to help you, like I said, bring it home and help you to catch APT. Not any one particular actor, but just some things that you can maybe tie to a particular campaign or find the campaign and whatnot. So yeah. So the threat and intelligence problem as it stands, we as incident responders or malware analysts and whatnot, we encounter, or even network defenders, we encounter suspect files, right? All the time. Really, to be honest, we encounter a lot of suspect files. We varying different degrees of file types, different content, different programs, software, and whatnot. So how do we filter through all that white noise with all these different files, right? And then the next thing about the threat intelligence problem is that the threat landscape is always changing. if you look, these are two blog posts from 2015, one dated April 24th, about a merger between Raytheon and WebSense. Raytheon acquired WebSense, and then that acquisition went public, and then an APT group started targeting WebSense and Raytheon employees to about the acquisition using some malware called PlugX. And then a week later, May 1st, 2015, you see another APT, Palo Alto, their blog, saying that PlugX was using legitimate Samsung software, signed Samsung software, to use to install PlugX as well. And in the first case, the WebSense spear phishing attempt, they were using a signed binary as well. They were using Kaspersky antivirus signed binary. And in the second case, they were using, 1 week later, they were using Samsung. So the threat intel problem is, it's constantly changing, and how do we keep up with that? So yeah. Next, I'm going to just talk to you about reverse engineering and malicious code analysis. It's like peeling back layers of the onion. Sometimes you do want to cry because it becomes very difficult to reverse some of this malware that's been obfuscated and whatnot. But I take it to that approach and just do one layer at a time. I wish I had a knife to just cut through it. I mean, well, you guess you could with the volatility, go right to the memory and you run it. But sometimes you get anti-sandboxing and different things, so you don't have that knife. But yeah, just take it one layer at a time is the best way to do it and move forward. Definitely one of the easiest tools for reverse engineering is strings. Runs through all the readable text in a binary that people can actually read. So if you're not a reverse engineer, you can just download strings, run strings against a file, and you can become a reverse engineer because we use it all the time. So yeah, but they can be hidden. So yeah. Next is a hex editor. So you're looking at the raw bytes that the computer is going to execute. The hexadecimal characters, not characters, but bytes. Yeah, sorry. And it's good to just look at things in a hex editor to find patterns, to find nested structures, or you're going to enumerate those structures and different things. But we're actually going to take a look into a hex editor today. So if you've never done it, stick around. I'll kind of show you how they're very useful in reverse engineering. And then a disassembler or debugger. I use IDA. Man, I love IDA. Don't you guys? For those who do you use it? It's just a great tool, the developers, and it gives you the instructions, like I said. So the bytes are what the machine chews on and eats, right, to execute the program. And then the disassembler will give you readable assembly language so humans can read and find out what the program is about to execute. So I'd say the fourth tool and the very best tool in a reverse engineer's handbook is, pocket, is Yara. I definitely have to give a shout out to the creator of Yara, Victor. He's created such a wonderful tool. Wes and all the other developers, they're great in supporting it. But Yara is aimed. It's a tool aimed, but not limited to, helping malware reversers to kind of identify and classify malware samples. And then with Yara, you can create descriptions of malware families, or really whatever you want, based on textual or binary patterns that you see in the files or any kind of data stream. So yeah. Real quick, so why Yara and not IOCs? Look at them, indicators of compromise, IP addresses, MD5s, file locations, URLs, domains. They can be changed. You just can't do hunting with IOCs. They can easily be changed, right? Next, what does Yara do? Well, it scans, at its core, it scans streams. It scans file streams, network streams, memory streams, any stream of data, any string of bytes or strings. You can use it to scan. So that's what it does at its core. It scans data streams. What are some tools that incorporate Yara? Obviously, I'm going to give a plug to my company, Fidelis. I love my company, but they've really embraced the Yara tool. They use it in 3 of their different products. We have 2 pay products, the Fidelis Network product that scans network streams, and then also our Fidelis Endpoint product that scans files and even memory using Volatility Yara, and so Vol Yara. So between the two of those, they hit all the different streams. Also, we have a free tool called a Threat Scanner, and it does OpenIOC and Yara scanning as well, too. There are also some other tools, Cuckoo Sandbox. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience have probably used Virus Total Intelligence. If you play with Virus Total, throw your rules up and get viruses back that people submit, and Volatility, the memory forensics tool. So all those have really embraced Yara as well. So enough talk about who uses it and blah, blah, what does it look like, right? So it's really simple. It's a it's a command line tool. The input is basically Yara, a couple of options, and then you could either choose the stream that you wanted to run against. Well, you give the rules file, you have to define the rules file, and then a stream that you want to run against. So that stream could either be a file, it could be a directory, you could even tell it to do a recursive directory scan, you can do it with a process ID, and then if you want to do, you can run it against a PCAP for network traffic, but basically you would kind of want to sessionize that data and run it against a TCP session, and then you can run Yara against it. And then the output's really simple. So you supplied the rules file, and where you've defined all your rules, and it tells you which rule has fired on which data stream, or which file or which directory, or file in the directory and so forth, or process ID. You can kind of see here some of them, unknown PlugX Trojan Loader payload names. We're going to actually go through these three right here. We're going to actually write these three. We're not going to cover this one, the XV header. It's a little crazy. But we're going to go through and we're going to write these three rules today. And you can see that based on this hash, this file, these three rules hit on these three files right here. So I just kind of blanked out the source directory, the extracted file, msi.dll, and then the main one, x2015.exe. So that was the PlugX, right? So let's write our first Yara rule. Really, really easy just to begin. You do it in text editor. You write the rule tag, right? So just rule, space, and then the rule name, right? And then just as if you were defining a function, an open and close bracket, you would add as well. And then now we're going to get to the detection logic of the rule. First, we're going to start off with the condition. I'm kind of going to build from the bottom up, just because it makes a little bit more sense for you to understand it. But the condition is a Boolean condition logic for the detection. You're going to see there in this one we have it returns true if we have a hit on my text string or my hex string or my regex. And then next, moving up, we're going to go to the string section, and we're going to actually define my text string, my hex string, and my regex. In this case, my text string is ASCII text, and the hex string is a hexadecimal byte sequence, and then my regex is a regular expression. I think it uses like PCRE or something like that. For the regexes. And then this one's an important kind of thing. First, I would say that the conditional section always needs to be present for a rule. You cannot write a rule without a conditional. You can write a really simple conditional if you want, but you have to have a conditional. The string section, like I said, is the detection, is the actual detection. You actually can write a rule without using strings and just based on a condition. But for the most part, 95 to 99% of your rules are going to have a string section written in them. And then when you share rules, so the good thing about Yara is that if you want to, you can share your detections, right? And so when you share things, it's definitely good to fill out the meta section when sharing rules. It just helps to reduce analysis time. Say a friend of yours gave you a rule, you have no idea what he wrote this rule against. You may not have the malware that he used to write the rule. So in the meta section, you would put particularly what Intel document was the source if somebody else wrote it, or perhaps the MD5 as for the source binary that you wrote it against, and even the description of the rule would definitely be helpful in the meta section as well. So when sharing your rules, definitely use the meta section. So we talked about the actual syntax of it. What can you actually signature in the malware? You can either go with pretty much text strings or byte sequences. The byte sequence or regular expressions, those are your, on the left, you'll see the text strings, and you see a kind of a short list of what you can actually signature. On the right-hand side of the black line, though, you'll see implementation traits and custom features. Those are things that you can actually use your byte sequence rules or your regular expressions to signature against. So if you look on the right, that's a much bigger listing to catch than on the left with strings. So if you're using text strings, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You're missing a lot of opportunities for detection. And then also, with the byte sequences, you really want to kind of get the unique characteristics of the malware and so forth. So that's the next thing I want to talk about. Basically, with string rules, they can easily be erased, right? Strings can easily be patched or modified or erased within a binary. But with byte sequence rules, you really can help. It can help you find the broader campaign. It helps you get the DNA or the family tree of the malware. And so therefore, I just think byte sequence rules are ultimately better. But definitely the string-based rules definitely have their place. So how do you use Yarra effectively in your organization or the tool in general, even for amongst yourselves? One of the big things that I always stress is rules, rules, rules. You can never have enough rules. Always try to write more than one rule per sample you look at least one strings-based rule and one bytes rule. Have descriptive names. Have descriptive names on your rules. So if you write it and a year later it finally fires, you can look back and, oh, that was the investigation that I did. And, oh, we're now getting we're seeing that guy again, or that malware again, or that file type again. This is coming up again. So have descriptive names in your rule names. And then you want to, when you're writing your rules and testing, you want to have at least 3 data sources. The first data source, obviously, is the malware you're trying to signature. You can't write a signature without a binary, right? I've definitely seen instances where people will say, oh, can you write detections for this? And it's like, well, I can't write it until you give me the files. I need the files. As a reverse engineer, I need those binaries, right? The second thing is a known data source. It can be known good, it can be known bad. It just has to be known, or it could be a mixture of both, known good and known bad. It has to be known to you as the analyst, right? Because you're going to use that known data source to test your false positives. Because okay, this rule is hitting on this file, it shouldn't be hitting that way, right? It shouldn't be hitting that way because you know that data source. And then the third data source is your new intelligence streams. So any new intelligence that's coming into your networks, or any new intelligence from Virus Total Intelligence or virusshare.org, any one of the where you can download malware from or something like that when doing your research. And then last but not least, I stressed this earlier, share with the meta section. If you're going to share your rules amongst with others, share with meta. I already explained that one. So next, let's talk about PlugX, right? PlugX is it's some APT malware. It's existed in some form since 2008, and it's evolved over time to offer new capabilities and control mechanisms. It's supported by an active development program. It's used by multiple APT actors, suspected to be China, or probably, let's just say it's China. It provides an attacker with a range of functionality, including the ability to log keystrokes, modify and copy files, capture screenshots of video and user activity, and perform administrative tasks such as terminating processes, logging of users, and rebooting victim machines, right? So PlugX. What did PlugX look like in 2015, right? The outer layer, like I said, when doing malware analysis, it's layers of an onion, right? So the outer layer of PlugX, to me, and when I saw it, was in 2015, was a self-extracting RAR archive. These are benign. They're commonly used for your program installers. So how do you go about and signature that? It looks like an installer that's coming into your network. And it's a RAR archive. Everybody's used like zip and RAR, 7-zip, and these compression formats. Well, these are self-extracting archives, so they're actually executable by nature archives, right? But they're not malicious really per se. They are, and they're executable, but it's the contents that really make up what the maliciousness is. Because, like I said, you see them in all your software installers and whatnot. So let's get into the contents of PlugX in these self-extracting RARs. They would also throw in a digitally signed executable, and so I mean, the digitally signed executables, they're reputation based, they're signed. They throw that. We saw that in the threat intel problem that we saw them abusing signed Samsung applications, and then the signed Kaspersky applications in the WebSense attack or campaign, email campaign. Next, there was a small Dll Loader. It used a side loading technique. I'll get into just a brief kind of explain that a little later. But it's a small DLL that would then load the compressed PlugX payload. The compressed payload was actually where the malware was. The compression or the assembly was always randomized. It was obfuscated. It was different. So how do you take something that's relatively not or hard to signature, relatively not signaturable, and let's signature that? So I'm going to show you. So we'll start with the first layer. Let's just signature, and I'm going to give you this one. I ran strings across the self-extracting RAR, and I came up with these. These look like really good strings, so I'm going to give you this rule right off the bat, and then we're getting into the juicier stuff. But it's good to signature this because, as an analyst, all I have to do, the self-extracting archive has a .exe extension. All I have to do is right-click, rename that file in Windows to .rar, and then I can use the WinRAR program or RAR, any kind of RAR extraction program to then extract the contents. Easy win. I've just eliminated one layer of the section, one layer down. So so those are like shooting fish in a barrel. It's great, and it just write this rule to help augment your analysis. Pick this out in your data set, and you'll be like, okay, I have a really easy place to start with to finding out information. Next, let's look at the next file. Let's signature that signed executable. You're going to be like, Jay, you're crazy. Why would you want to do that? Really? Why would you want to signature a signed executable? They're reputation-based. They're supposed to be good, right? I'm supposed to trust them. Am I right? Do you trust signed executables? No. Well, you're right. You're right. So in this case, I am crazy if I want to sign it, but we have already known that we saw that the landscape changes very quickly, right? So within 1 week, we had a signed Kaspersky binary and a signed Samsung binary, and from legitimate applications. Now, if you're trying to track signed executables within your own organization with a private certificate, that's one thing. That's definitely a reason you would want to to signature a signed executable. Also, if the binary has been signed with a stolen certificate, you definitely want to signature that as well. But in this case, why would we want to signature Kaspersky or Samsung software? So I'm crazy in this point. You're right. You're right. It's like playing whack-a-mole, right? So especially with the intelligence that we have, it's changed within a week. So up next, I'm going to take a little detour for a second and get off of PlugX and just kind of teach you some things about some string rules, right? When writing your string rules, you love Unicode. Can everybody say it with me? I love Unicode. Boom, boom. Okay, you all love Unicode. Why? Look at this chart. Look at the chart. This is ASCII on the left, 8 bits, right? Unicode on the right, 16 bits. Same letter, A, at the top, 8 bits. Same letter, A, on the right, 16 bits. You get double the detection, right? Double the byte detection for the same character. That's why we love Unicode. That's why we love Unicode. Next, how do you further tune some string rules? Yara has these cool things called modifiers in the language. We talked about Unicode. Unicode, they have the wide modifier, and then there's another cool. So there's ASCII, there's wide, and then there's another cool modifier called the full word. So in the first example, you see setup.msi. Let's say you had a file path in the front of it, and you want to kind of ignore the file path. But in this case, you just want a signature, setup.msi. You don't want there to be a file path in the front. You've noticed that there's never been a file path in what you're trying to signature. We want to take that full word, the full word, just the ASCII or the wide, setup.msi, nothing in the front, nothing in the back. So there's a full word modifier. Then let's say you get this camel case of kernel32.dll. You don't know how to signature it. Boom. Hit everything. You can hit it with wide. You can hit it with ASCII. And then there's the no case modifier. So that camel case of kernel32, the uppercase, lowercase that you see alternating on the screen, you can just say kernel32.dll all in lowercase and then throw the no case modifier at the end and it'll hit. Next, there's if for any Linux or Unix programmers, the uname, like you want to look at for white space characters, right? And I found this in another APT binary, some Derisby Linux binary. The uname command was surrounded by 3 white space line feed indicators or line feed bytes. Surrounded by the command, particularly the 2 at the end. So I was like, hey, let's signature that. Why is there 2 white space bytes after the command, the uname command and whatnot? So definitely look for white space when signaturing and writing your string rules. Those help really well. This is the last stop on the detour. These are just some good examples of some string rules, when to use them and whatnot. First one is the Metasploit UAC bypass. I picked a really good string for this one. It said, error access denied. We probably tried to inject into an elevated process, which isn't allowed unless we're also elevated. Pick an unelevated process. How unique is that, right? Quick Google search ended up yielding, hey, that's the Metasploit UAC bypass. It's when it's trying to open a process and it fails for like Windows 7, right? So that was a quick, I wrote a rule on it, and then you can, when you're scanning your data set, oh, okay, it's doing this. There's some Metasploit code in there. It helps augment your analysis when you're writing a rule, when you're writing something like this. And also notice there's some white space characters tucked in that signature as well. Next, the conspec variable. Conspec variables are a very unique variable for Windows in a sense that it's the only environment variable that points to a command into an executable process. That executable process is the command.exe, cmd.exe. So if I saw conspec in a binary, I can say, boom, that malware right there, he can execute a command shell just by the presence of that one little word, right? He has the ability to execute a command shell. I don't know what he executes further, but he can execute a command shell. So string rules can help definitely augment your analysis. And then last but not least, on the stop on the detour, we have an attribution-based rule. So this is one from Dark Soul, the Teardrop 2 campaign or whatever. This is a custom base 64 alphabet that they used in some malware that somebody reported on. I grabbed it and made a signature out of it. So you definitely want to look for unique strings that will help you in attribution later on. So if you can't attribute it now, maybe you can, with a string rule like this, you can attribute it in 2 years from now. Luckily somebody else started the analysis. We picked up on this, and we were able to make a string rule out of it. So that kind of concludes our detour for a second. Let's get back to PlugX, right? The next layer in our package was the Dll Trojan Loader. I mentioned earlier, it uses a side loading technique. Side loading is I don't know why they started calling this. Really, it's called load order hijacking. That's what it's always been. And up until about 2 or 3 years ago, some people started throwing out side loading. I guess it has to do with the fact that it's getting loaded into assigned binaries executable process space. Maybe that's why they call it side loading. But essentially, at its core, it's load order hijacking. The next thing you want to pay attention to, look at file attributes as well. File attributes are important. They're kind of the signature on. So this Trojan Loader had a very small size, and it had very little executable code. as we can see here. So I just kind of ran it through some tools. You'll see the strings tool, like I said, from reverse engineering. We get the strings tool output, and then we also have a little bit of a chunk of output from IDA, the disassembler. You can see that from IDA, there's only 4 subroutines and a DLL entry point, so maybe 5 routines in the whole binary. Even the size from the strings outputs, it's only like 3.5K. I mean, that's really small. And then it's got a few readable strings in there. What's one thing that kind of jumps out to people? Remember, what do we love? Unicode, right. So what, do we see any Unicode here? We do. We do the msi.dll.eng. And that's a really weird file name, too. It's got a double file extension, so it's Unicode. That sounds like a good signature. So let's write that. Boom, this is how you write it. So rule, and we're going to name this rule PlugX Trojan Loader. Payload names. The string detection is going to be, so for string 1, msi.dll.eng, we're going to throw in the wide modifier, because remember, it was Unicode, and we're going to say full word, because we don't have any evidence that it's got maybe a file extension or other things before it or after it, right? So we're going to say full word in this. And the condition is going to be any of them. So any of them means any of the strings present in the binary. If they're present, if any of these strings are present, then in a binary, then alert. So it's a real simple way to say all the signatures and strings for any of them. So let's say we ran that rule, and for whatever reason we got a lot of false positives back. I don't know why, but we did. We thought msi.dll.eng was pretty unique, being Unicode and the full word and such. So how do we then bring it down? It really wasn't the case, but I just needed to throw this out there to kind of help you guys, just teach you more on how do you incorporate them. But it's pretty unique, actually. But in the case that you do get something back where you get a lot of false positives, you can look at the magic file number, right, in an executable. So for those of you who run Linux or Unix, you have the file command, and it reads the magic number for the file type. Windows, they use extensions. But in this case, you have the 4D5A. We're going to look at that magic number, and we're going to use that to filter, so our rule only runs against Windows executables with the 4D5A signature at the beginning. So remember that was at offset 0. It's at the very beginning of the file. And then this is what, in red, this is basically, I'm going to just give it out there to you. I'm not going to explain it, but you can go back and research it, how to write it. But you're checking for the MZ magic header at offset 0, the UN16 at offset 0, and you're looking for that byte value. It shows up as 5A4D because it's switched around the endianness. I forget which one, little and near. I forget, but either way. So that's how you would reduce some false positives there. Let's say you still get more false positives, right, even after doing this. What can you do? I mentioned about file attributes, right? File attributes. So how about we say, let's reduce it down. The file size is less than 11K. So we can add that in there to then further reduce our false positives. This rule is not really a hard rule, but we're combining a lot of conditions. And for those of you out there, and maybe your first time, I'd say this is a medium type rule and whatnot. But let's get into some hard stuff, right? This is the time where if you want to fall asleep, you can fall asleep. But if you want to be awake, you can be awake. The PlugX Trojan Loader. And we're going to do rule 2, because we wrote one on the payload names, right? Now we're going to do byte sequence rules. This one's going to be really hard. In here, I'm just giving you the disassembly. If you've never heard that term, you have the opcodes on the left, and you have the assembly instructions on the right. Well, let's just do a disassembly on the brief, on the very, very brief, right? Because I don't have all day, and neither do you. Like I said, opcodes on the left. The 80 opcode is the opcode for the XOR mnemonic. The mnemonic is what you guys read for disassembly, right? And the 80 is what the machine reads. So 80 means XOR. And then there's some operands that go with this instruction. And these operands, the CL register, so you're moving 3F, it's into the CL register. And then you're just performing the operation, the XOR operation. But those opcodes correspond to those operands. The F1 3F corresponds to the CL 3F operand. And notice that the opcode, the last opcode, the 3F, is the same as our constant, is our byte constant on the right-hand side. So pay attention to that. That's going to come into play in the future. If you get lost with opcodes, definitely check there's a really cool x86 assembler opcode reference page on the internet that you can check out. I use it all the time. It's like my right-hand page of information for opcodes, yeah. And then, so let's go into the byte sequence rules. I'm just going to give you some brief steps, and then we'll go into writing it. First, you want to wildcard the operands, and I'll show you exactly what that means with Yara. Next, you want to consolidate the wildcards with some jumps. You want to pad jumps for larger constants, so that 3F constant that we saw, that 3F byte constant, there's a possibility it could be a larger constant in that position. So we want to pad for those larger constants if they ever show up. And then also we want to do constant enrichment and tuning. We want to hunt our malware repositories, our new intelligence data streams for other samples, right? So how do we do the first step, wildcarding operands? We find all the opcodes for the operations. We ignore those, and then all the operands are going to be in red that you're going to see up on the screen. So we're going to wildcard that. How do we wildcard that? Boom, just with question marks, double question marks. So we just, on the right-hand side, we've wildcarded all of our operands. So real quick, I mean, we're getting some heavy stuff, right? Next, you want to consolidate the wildcards with jumps just to make it look prettier. You don't really have to do this, but if you want to type out all those question marks, you can. That's up to you. But I like to consolidate them with some jumps. And basically, the two sets of question marks, so you got 4 question marks on the left at the very top, can be reduced down to a 2. So that means skip 2 bytes. It's a jump. It's called a jump. Next, you want to pad for larger constants. Remember that 3F constant that we talked about. In this case, we got 2 of them in this byte sequence. We have the 3F, and then 2 instructions later, we have the push 0. So the XOR CL with the 3F, and then the push 0. Push 0 actually happens to be some junk code. I don't cover that, but that's something you'll have to take into account. I will show you at the end with the finalized rule, but I'm not going to exactly explain the math on it. There's a little bit of math. It's really easy, though. It's addition and subtraction, depending on what you got to do. But so how do you pad for larger constants? Remember that we already have 1 byte present. 1 byte present. This is a 32-bit architecture, x86, right? So we can have up to 4 bytes for a constant. So we already have 1 present, so 3 more. 3 more. What if 3 more are present? So we have a jump of between 2 to 5 bytes, right? Jump between 2 to 5 bytes. And then we have the push 0. We already have 1 present. And in this case, so we have the 2. The reason why we have the 2 is because of that CL. Remember, we had 2 opcodes for the operand. So we have two operands. It doesn't always do that way, but we had 2. And then so therefore we start off with 2 and then add 3 more. That we wildcarded. And now with the push 0, we have 1 for the operand. So we have 1 and add 3 more. So you get a jump of 1 to 4. Add 3 more to 2. You get 2 to 5. I don't know if you're seeing it there. You can go back and look. But yeah. Next, they have what's called in Yara, they have called alternates. Alternates are really good. So on the left, you have sample 1. Sample 1, the first byte in this sequence that we're trying to write. And I forgot to mention earlier that I did the reverse engineering for you. We're reversing we're signaturing a string decode routine that was present. Remember, we only had 5 routines present in the DLL, the Trojan Loader. Well, one of those 5 is a string deobfuscation routine. So that's what we're signaturing on. That's what we ended up picking to write our rule signature. I should have mentioned that in the beginning. I'm sorry, but yeah. So sample 1 on the left, you have an 8B instruction. Sample 2, from doing some hunting, we found a different one. Opcodes look a little bit different, but it starts with an 8A instruction as well. And so they have what's called alternates. So we kind of go back to the opcode table, consult the opcode table, and notice that for the move instruction, we have the 8.8, 8.9, 8A, 8B, and 8C. Those are all moves. So let's do a alternate. So we have 8B, and we want to insert 8A, right? So they have this little open bracket or paren, I don't know, with the logical or, and then so you have 8A or 8B, and then you follow by a jump. So we're in that sequence. So now we're writing our byte sequence rule, and we run it against Yara or Virus Total Intelligence, and it comes back at us and it says, hey, you're too optimized. You are just too optimized. Well, I can't keep up. It's slowing down the scanner. You need to pull back on this rule, right? Happens a lot in byte sequence rules. So how do you pull back? One of the great things that I kind of pull back on is similar addresses. In similar address locations, so virtual address locations are one of the things that I kind of pull back on. They can change, but if you look at this one, I've kind of highlighted the 00300010 byte, and then another one further down. You can even see I use an alternate, and so they do change between these two rules, this Trojan Loader 8 and Trojan Loader 9 rule that I have. I wrote like 12 different rules on this one from all these different payloads that I was finding, like literally. So I'm going to show you those results in a little bit, and some of the cool results that writing the byte sequence rules, like I said, you can find the families and find the variants, how it actually impacted and helped us to improve our string-based rules later on. So after we write this byte sequence rule, I'm going to show you that. So stick around. Don't leave yet. I know it's the hard stuff, but yeah. So look for these similar address locations, and maybe you want to insert them back in, okay? So we took out the wildcards, and we inserted these bytes back in. This is the finalized rule. I have a couple things that I didn't cover in here. At the very, very bottom, I have a lower nibble wildcard. I really love those. Oh, man, I wish I had all day to explain, and I'll tell you all about them. We also had some junk code. If you look at the picture at the bottom right-hand corner, that's the disassembly, and that was like the one with like a whole bunch. It's got 4 junk code instructions, right? So how do you handle those junk codes? So we basically pad our jumps a little bit more, and we even have a jump there from 0 to 5. So that's 0 jump. That's because of the junk code, and we had to remove we had to de-optimize with that virtual address, right? So that's the finalized rule. So just a quick review: byte sequence rule steps, wildcard your rules, wildcard your operands. Sorry, consolidate your wildcards with jumps, and then pad your jumps for larger constants. And remember that when you write these byte sequence rules, you're constantly doing tuning. Even with the string-based rules, constantly doing tuning and hunting your other malware repositories for new samples, your new intelligence stream, like I said earlier on. So let's start to look at some of the repeated things. So in this case, I kind of highlighted these are all the same MD5, and on that all these rules from Virus Total Intelligence. That's where I do my hunting. Sorry, guys. But I'm very fortunate to do it. I love it in there. So they hit on all these PlugX rules, and you can notice, if you notice, I have TBHK campaign PlugX Trojan Loader 10 at the very top. Then the next one is Trojan Loader 06. What happened to 7, 8, and 9? Trojan Loader 5, Trojan Loader 4. What happened to 2 and 3? Because now we have Trojan Loader 1, and then we have another string to code, which actually is the same string to code thing. So I actually had like 12, but that one I just didn't number it. But notice here, I wrote like 10 different rules for the same function signature, right? So if you don't get a hit on, if you write this one rule to rule them all, like a Lord of the Rings effect, I guess, kind of say, if you write this one rule to rule them all, and you get a variant that doesn't hit on it, and you only have one rule, you have no coverage on that. So I wrote like 12 rules on this guy, and you notice so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rules out of the 12 hit. So I think that's pretty good coverage. And then I look at the ones that don't hit and see why, and maybe tune some of those rules and whatnot. So constant enrichment and tuning on multiple rules. And then last but not least, let me go over some more results. Our byte sequence rule then fueled back results. What we got hit on the byte sequence rules, what we didn't get hit on with the payload names, the string ones that we wrote earlier, these are some new names that we got using our generic byte sequence rules, right? So now we have more payload names, and we can include that into that rule as well. And then looking at some of these names, does anybody see any patterns? Does anybody see any patterns that emerge? We talked about one. We talked about one earlier. Anybody? Anybody? The double extension, double file extension. Good, good. I think it's one person paying attention. Nice. So yeah, the double file extension. That's definitely one pattern that started to emerge. Could all these binaries be related to the same actor, the same APT actor, or the same malware APT author? Since we know that PlugX is being used for by like 6-8 million different APT campaigns in China, right? So can this all be the same actor? Are there any other themes that you may see in this data? Another interesting one that kind of popped out was kind of a McAfee theme. The MCF, MC Util, MCF, MC McAfee. Are they trying to hide amongst McAfee products and whatnot with some of these names? There was even a real easy one. Microsoft installer theme, msi.dll.eng, msi.dll.cav. Oh, there's an AV name, another AV name in there. But double file extension. Microsoft, they're trying to do Microsoft. I mean, look at all these themes we're extracting out based on the couple of rules that we wrote on this malware, which was kind of pretty hard to signature, right? I mean, it used the self-extracting archive, which is like, you see that all the time. A really, really small Dll Loader, a signed executable, and then we didn't even get into the payload, right? We didn't even get into the payload. And look at all these themes that we're picking up. And last but not least, the last theme that I want to definitely point out to you, look at this news media theme, right? BBC, British Broadcasting Company, Sky. My team lead pointed this out to me. I didn't know that Sky was like the British version of Fox News, right? So .bbc.sky, and then they forgot the dot, but you see a Fox. Maybe that's Fox News in there too as well. So are they targeting these news organizations? Are they trying to, or maybe not? Are they trying to mix in, or maybe they're targeting the news partners with news organizations or something like that? Who knows? But I mean, these are some patterns that started to emerge when we started tying multiple rules and our byte sequence rules with our string rules, right? So let's do some housekeeping. Let's kind of wrap it up. Like I said, when writing Yarra rules. Can't go wrong with enough rules, right? Have a really good naming scheme also. So a year later, if these rules fire, especially your attribution-based rules, if they fire 2 years later, you can remember, oh, yeah, that was when I did that investigation. Signature all the layers. It's like the onion. Man, sometimes I do really want to cry. And then, constant tuning. Look at your data sources, the known source, your malware itself, new intelligence streams. Share with meta, like I said. How about some review for some string rules? Remember, we love what? Unicode. Nice. All right. And reduce false positives with string rules. You want to use those modifiers. Look for those white space characters and maybe some file attributes and stuff like that. And remember that strings can be changed or obfuscated. And then last but not least, we really went heavy. Didn't we go really heavy into some hard stuff with the byte sequence rules? I wish I had more time because I didn't even show you more. But we use the byte sequence rules to kind of find a broader campaign when tying that with the string rules. And we had more opportunities to signature or create different signatures with the malware as well. We looked at some of those implementation traits, the custom features maybe. So also remember, consult your opcode table. This is the point where I'm just kind of reading from the slides. I'm sorry, guys. But there's so much I want to tell you. There's so much I want from you to walk away from this talk that I just, yeah. Consult the opcode table. Identify your junk code. I didn't really show you that, but just keep an eye out on it. And then look for some of the opportunities to use alternates, lower nibble wildcards, make use of structures. That's another thing we didn't get a chance to talk about. The lower nibble wildcards we didn't get a chance to talk about. And then also, I figured out there's ways to signature actually bits, not just bytes, but bits in Yara. You can actually go down to the bit level, which is really cool using the bitwise operators and whatnot. So if you wanted to check bits, just bit flags, that is awesome. Using Yara. Some resources. These are the two MD5s that I used for the PlugX in this. And then check out our GitHub, Fidelis Cyber. There's some links to some of the things that, from my talk and whatnot. And that's pretty much it. It's the end. Does anybody have any questions? We got about 4.5 minutes.
Does Yara actually quarantine, or is it just alerting?
It just alerts. No, it does not quarantine. And you have to scan. You're scanning on demand. Unless you're using a tool that's integrated on it, then it would alert. But no, it does not quarantine. It's just an alert, a detection alert. We're running out of time, Ming.
Let me get the next question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Question?
Go back one slide real quick because I wanted to copy.
The resources slide?
Okay. Are you going to make these slides available on one of those links?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
How did you know?
No, come on.
The sample 5 bytes. How did you know that one was how did you know it was a deobfuscation routine in that file? I know how. I mean, in general. Yeah.
How do you collect the malware and its variants? How do you collect the sample and the variants?
How do I collect the sample?
Yes.
I get intelligence tippers from the blogs and the reports that I read online, right? And those companies give out indicators, like hashes and whatnot. I collect them through VirusTotal. There's also other free places like VirusShare that you can get for free, malware for free and whatnot. So you just got to find a good malware repository that's constantly getting updated and whatnot. I use VirusTotal. It's a pay-for. If you join Yarra Exchange group, it's a Google group, you can get some limited queries from them for free from VirusTotal and whatnot for some free stuff. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
We got about a minute and a half.
No, we got some time. We got some time. I know people are walking in and out.
Y'all hated me that much?
No.
Can't really see actually because the light is so bright.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any question for Jay? Yeah.
Yes.
So-
The slides will be available.
Oh, okay. So while I'm here, why don't I make yes? And the short answer is yes.
How do you deal with the randomized, when they randomize, like say .dll, .eng or that kind of thing, their code randomizes their names.
In the string rule, you might for randomized strings or randomized bytes.
Let's say like randomize .dll, every time you run,
So
it creates a different name. It doesn't create the,
So you may want to turn that string from a string-based rule to a byte sequence rule in a hex editor, and then wildcard out those characters, or you can do a regular expression, or actually Yarra gives you the ability to define non-ASCII bytes in the ASCII text. That doesn't wildcard like you're asking, but it gives you the ability to define non-ASCII bytes mixed in with the ASCII text as well. So you can convert that. So there's 3 different options: regex, convert that string rule to a byte sequence rule, and then also insert bytes if needed, like non-ASCII bytes, to further tune it. Do I see a lot of randomization? Yeah, with the file names. I mean, yeah, it happens a lot. They're so easy to change. You don't even need a disassembler. You just change them in a hex editor to rechange file names or whatnot, or they get changed on the fly. I mean, yeah, file names are definitely changed. We had very little to go with on this PlugX Trojan Loader, hence why I decided to signature on a file name. So that file name is actually the file name of the payload. It's a string present in the Dll Loader. I should have explained this. I'm sorry, guys. It's a string present in the Dll Loader. That's the name of the payload. So the loader needs to decrypt or needs to execute the payload. So it needs to look for that file on disk. That's why we were writing that file name string signature base rule. Sorry, I should have explained that. Yeah. So any other questions? Any other questions? Can't see. Doesn't look like. Good. One question I will throw out there. I do get a lot of questions about UTF-8. In that case, if you're trying to signature UTF-8, just write a byte sequence rule. Look at it in a hex editor. Write a byte sequence rule. I have gotten that question a lot too. So yeah. Thank you, Ming. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Jay, thank you so much. Thank you. believe me, I can tell this talk went well. One thing while you're here, while we're all here, and I will say, as I mentioned a few times yesterday, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, every speaker workshop slide, all the slides will be published on the Wallace Sheep website, wallacesheep.com. Also, and then within the next, I don't know when, within the next, usually before Christmas time, somewhere between now and Christmas time, the videos of all the talks, including all the speaker workshop talks, will be posted on not only the Wallace Sheep website, but also by DEF CON, the conference. So slides will be made available within the next 2 weeks on wallacesheep.com, and all the video streams of the talks will be available sometime between now and Christmas time, usually in the fall. So again, thank you so much, Jay.
That's good news. That's good
Yes,
news.
thank you so much.